Just wonderful photographic work. She's a very strong Christian, and she's written a new book, actually published a new book called Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. I've got a link up at thebottomlineshow.com to it. I am in awe of people who can take pictures or draw pictures. I'm not terribly creative that way at all. If you've ever seen some of the pictures I've taken, you will vouch for that. My kids are all nodding their heads saying, yes, Dad, please don't take pictures of anything, ever. They're just not very good at it. That's okay. But when you look at these moments and you realize God, who is eternal, gives us so many of these moments every day. And we've got, when you combine it with God's word and inspirational thought and these beautiful photographs, I can't help but wonder how much better off each of us would be having these images, either in real life by going out and enjoying nature, or even just in something like a devotional book like this, Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. As we continue, I'm going to bring Lorraine onto the program here, and we'll talk about what was the basis for this, how God led her into this ministry. I'm always intrigued with, and I think a lot of us are, with people who are artistic and find a way to, fuel that, use that passion to fuel a way to actually support yourself too in this life. But we're going to talk about these powerful moments in the presence of God with Lorraine Marie Varela coming up next as the bottom line continues. You've heard the expression, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, when you take a look at this resource we're going to be talking about today here on the bottom line, that's going to take on a whole new significance. The book is called Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. The author, Lorraine Marie Varela, and she joins me today here from Seattle on the Bottom Line Show today. Lorraine, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to the program today.
Thanks, Roger. Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk about your artistry, shall we? I mean, you work in photography, and I can honestly say in a biblical sense I'm jealous of what you do, because I take terrible pictures. Ask my children. I am the worst photographer in the history of the world. So someone who can do the kind of work that you do, I'm always in awe of. Talk about how you got started doing that.
Well, I feel like photography is a gift that God gave me from the very beginning. And my dad can attest to the fact that I used to drive him crazy, because back in the day we didn't have even photographs, but he had slide boxes of the slides.
Oh, yes.
As a toddler, I would go through and mess everything up.
Take them out of the carousels and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were that kid.
So I was that kid, but pictures have always just drawn me in. And so it wasn't until I was probably on my 4th or 5th career that I actually landed into photography. And it's our livelihood, and we couldn't be happier. My husband, Gabriel, works with me full-time in our business. And
Excellent.
So we primarily work with families and with high school seniors, but enjoyed working on landscape photography for this book project as well.
Yeah, and I think about that landscape because I'm always in awe of the people who can take, I love my sister. She's really great at situational pictures. Oh, here's someone sitting at the table, click. But then when I see someone who can really stage a shot, really kind of get the nuances and capture it somehow, and especially coming from a Christian perspective with God's creation, that really is a gift.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that you do it so well.
We love to travel, and my camera's always with me. And with the start of digital photography back in about the year 2000, things just exploded for so many people, myself included. And photography has never been the same.
Yeah. Talking with Lorraine Marie Varela today here on The Bottom Line. Her new book is called Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. It's up at thebottomlineshow.com. Just the cover in and of itself is it's one of those. And with social media going the way it's gone right now, the other night I had a friend in Colorado who shot a picture of the sunset in Colorado, and it was neat to see everybody from Denver all the way to San Francisco and then down south to the San Diego area, all kind of chiming in with, well, here's what it looks like here, here's what it looks like here. And I kept thinking, wow. Boy, God is showing off big time tonight with this one. But the fact that we now have the technology and are able to kind of capture those moments. What was it about photography for you, before we get into the specifics of the book, what was it about the photography for you that led you to want to capture those 1/500th of a second moments or whatever they are, the way they are? Most people can go through and say, I got a picture of it, or I just have a memory. That's fine. But for you see so much more into this. What do you think led you into it?
Honestly, I just feel like this was God's gift to me. And I remember things in pictures. If I don't have a picture, I don't have a memory.
Okay.
So I will just create memories just photographic memories in my mind, even if I don't have my camera in my hand. So it's just how I see.
Yeah, that's well, and I wonder how many of us are actually like that and don't even realize the importance of taking those pictures. And I know as I get older too, my memory fails me. a lot more than it used to. And so it's nice to have that visual representation. You've got this collection of your photography in this book, Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. Why this book right now in your season of life?
Wow. Well, because God has just revealed himself in such power to me. I've been a Christian all of my life, I'd say since the time that I was 3 years old, and I asked Jesus into my heart. And I always had this understanding that there was fellowship with God and that we had relationship with him, but it wasn't until I was in my late 30s in the year 2000 that I actually had a powerful encounter with God that just totally changed my life forever. And it wasn't necessarily something that I was even thinking would happen, but I was just after a deeper experience with him. My brother had kind of spurred me on to think about my faith in a different way, and I was sure that he was wrong, and so I was asking to prove him.
Right, of course.
And instead, God just came and he showed me that my brother was right, and he spoke to me in a dream in the middle of the night, and he gave me a word in a foreign language that I had never heard before. And he told me to take this word to a woman who actually was a manicurist who would do my nails, and she would know what it means. And it was a word in Vietnamese, and it ended up being the most powerful word that he could have ever given to me because, in essence, the word in Vietnamese meant way. And I found the word later, 2 weeks later in the Vietnamese New Testament, where it says, Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and life. No man comes to the Father but through me. And to be hearing God's voice and given something so powerful, it just totally changed the direction of how I looked at my faith and how I related to the Lord. And so that's how this book came about.
Wow. I'm having kind of a revitalization of my faith just hearing you share that testimony. And I've been walking with the Lord for a long time. But what pinpoint precision God's speaking into your world. And obviously, this is the part of sovereignty that I think a lot of times we miss in our culture, where we want kind of an easy believism, is the fact that God spoke to you in a dream, a little antagonist with your brother, brought you a word that only one other person could help you figure out. And it was something in just the kind of mendacity of getting your nails done. I'm talking with Lorraine Marie Varela today here on The Bottom Line. Her book is called Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. It's up at thebottomlineshow.com. And I have to confess, as a non-nature loving person, someone who does, I have a son-in-law who's, we call him our hippie. I mean, he's studying environmental science. He loves, all things green and getting outdoors and camping, backpacking. And I'm just not that way. Roughing it for me means that the hotel doesn't have a coffee maker in it. That's where I am.
So I'm with you on that.
So when I see a book like this, a devotional book, I want to get into some of the specifics on the other side of this break, but when I see a devotional book like this, it kind of takes me outdoors a little bit, and it makes me feel a little bit more at one with nature, and I appreciate the fact, Lorraine, that you've done that. The book is called Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. Lorraine Marie Varela is the author, as she's also the photographer behind all these beautiful shots. It's up at thebottomlineshow.com. More of this conversation in just a moment as The Bottom Line continues. The book is called Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. The author/photographer is Lorraine Marie Varela. And today here on The Bottom Line, talking with Lorraine about this book and this devotional too. You've got testimonies in this thing. You've got inspirational messages in this book as well. How did you determine which one's going where? I mean, did the testimonies come and the pictures followed, or did you find testimonies to match the pictures? How did you put that all together?
Well, basically, Roger, what happened is that on New Year's Eve 2013, I was gathered with just a small core group of my friends, and I had this inspiration to just ask God for a gift of the Holy Spirit for that year. And I just decided that what Solomon asked for was a good choice, and it would be good for me to just ask for wisdom. And so that began a year of 365 days of just making time every day to sit in the presence of God, to have my Bible open, to read from the Word, and then just ask Him to speak to me directly about what He wanted to impart to me that day. And so I would journal the words that I felt Him speaking to me, and very quickly I noticed that something was different. I had been awakened to hearing His voice 15 years prior, but there was a change when I asked for wisdom. And I started sharing it with a friend of mine who was a missionary in Egypt, and she just said, these words are so powerful, you need to share them with others. And I'm like, no, these are private.
Right.
So because of her encouragement and encouragement of my husband and my daughter, I finally realized that there was probably enough in what I was receiving to share it with others, and that's how the devotionals came about. So, and then the photography was a compilation of images that I've taken through the years in our travels, as well as imagery that I created for the book itself.
And interestingly, and it's interesting to me how in that creative process, I'm sure there were a lot of shots you looked at and said, wow, this is a perfect fit for this testimony, for these words of inspiration. And you weren't thinking that at the time you were shooting those things.
Oh, no. In fact, one of my favorite images is of our daughter, who was 21 at the time. We had been in Egypt, and we were at the Great Pyramids of Giza. And Alyssa is a photographer as well, and she had her backpack over her shoulder, and she really wanted this image of her in front of the pyramids of Egypt at a distance. And it's a great picture, it's one of my favorites. And she also carries a heart for missions and for the nations. And so the devotional that goes along with her picture is one that's called Make Me Known, and how we carry God's presence wherever we go and into the nations. And I thought that was the perfect blend, and had to have that picture with that devotional.
Such a neat project, and such a privilege to talk with the author / composer of this. I think of you more as the producer of it, Lorraine Varela, with me today here on The Bottom Line. The book is called Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. It's a great devotional book that we have up at thebottomlineshow.com. And I think about the way these things are used, as you were describing the process by which others were speaking into your life and saying you need to share this, that whole kind of public-private dilemma that I think a lot of Christians have. On the one hand, in this culture, I'm sure there are some people who think, gosh, God gave me this word, I have to share it with everybody, and this should be a book and a movie, and that type of thing. We kind of think rather consumeristically. And other times, there are things that it's almost like God has to pry it out of our hand because He gave it with us, He gave it to us to share with others, and yet you're asking the question constantly, Lord, was this just for me in this moment, or is this for other people to have too? And I appreciate the sensitivity that you've shown not only with this project, but just in our conversation in terms of what's for public consumption to be shared and what isn't too. How many people are you hearing from right now who are getting this book and saying, I bought this for me and I wound up giving it to somebody else?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because this book has only been out for 2 weeks, and I'm already hearing just a variety of ways that it's being people's lives are being touched. For example, there's a woman who runs a ministry that brings women out of the sex slave industry. And they're providing these books for women that need to find their identity in Jesus. And my mother, who's 83 years old, was on an anniversary dinner trip with my dad, and they ended up talking with a couple next to them and did some marriage counseling with them.
Wow.
And I had no idea, but there was a devotional that says, to love is to surrender, and just where I felt like the Lord was just talking to me about laying down my rights and what that means, and how it becomes just the relationship between surrender and love. And I just never anticipated that the words that the Lord spoke to me in private would be used to bring revelation to people's lives and make a change in that way.
I think it's neat. Lorraine Varela with me today here on The Bottom Line. The book we're talking about is called Powerful Moments in the Presence of God. It's a beautiful devotional book. We have a link up at thebottomlineshow.com. When I think of devotional books, I think we have a tendency to say it's one way or the other. I got this for me. This is speaking to me. I've got to focus on me. This is God, getting me alone and helping me get my act together, or I'm looking for a gift for somebody, and the tendency I have is if I'm looking for a gift for somebody, I'm not thinking about me, I'm thinking about them. And I think that this is one of those resources that speaks universally to us in whatever stage of faith you're in, whatever season of life you're in. And I can't recall too many devotional books that are like that. Seconds left in our time together, Lorraine. If somebody is just tuning in and they haven't heard any of our conversation, what's the one message you'd like them to hear about this work and the way God has spoken to you in this season of your life?
That the ability to hear God's voice is present for every single person. It's not just for the few that write books about it, or for your pastor, or for leadership. That Jesus said, "My sheep will hear my voice, and they know me," and that this is to be a springboard of inspiration and encouragement, that you would have your own powerful moments sitting in God's presence. Just come to Him with childlike faith, and He responds to that
I love it. I love it. We can hear that voice if we'll listen to it and if we'll listen for it. And this is a good way to do so in these quiet moments. Powerful Moments in the Presence of God, the brand new devotional book by Lorraine Marie Varela. It's up at thebottomlineshow.com. Lorraine, thanks so much for the work that you've done. And thanks for being with me today here on The Bottom Line.
Thank you so much, Roger.
Well, and I